Okay, so I think we're going to start. This is the first of two artist panels with artists in the exhibition. And I think I'm going to, well, I'll just introduce everyone to begin with. To my left is Ishmael Randall Weeks, Raimond Chaves and Gilda Mantilla, who have been working collaboratively for this show, but also work independently as well. And then Tony Cruz, and finally Pablo Leon de la Barra, who's going to help Tony with issues of translation, should that be necessary. So I'm going to ask Raimond and Gilda to begin, and I'm going to ask each of the artists to describe the projects that they've realised for the exhibition, the work that's included in the exhibition. Just talk a little bit about those particular works. And what we have behind is a PowerPoint which shows installation shots of the exhibition and then some details as well. So for anyone who hasn't seen the show, you'll have some very good visuals of the actual works that we're going to talk about. So, Gilda, I just wanted you to kind of explain the project, the starting point, and how the drawings and the slide projection has come about.
Well, what we are... Is it necessary, right? What Raimond and I are presenting at the show in the drawing room is two series of drawings that are part of what we have been producing in relation with research that we are following at the Amazonian Library in Iquitos. We come from Peru, and Iquitos is the most important city in the Peruvian Amazon. And since we have a previous experience of traveling and drawing, and that took us to Iquitos some years ago. And in that trip, we had the first contact with this Amazon library, and it was one of the places that we said, okay, after this, we must return and do something in more depth. So we've been going to the library to capture, to scan different materials, and in fact, what we are presenting now, it's the works that we've been doing just from drawings that we have scanned at the library. But we are, it's more like an ongoing project because we are also working with other materials of the library. And we have one series of drawings that are carbon copy from the originals in the library, and a slideshow that we've made out of drawings that we scanned in the library, but that we, in a way, have transformed in their information quality by taking some aspects and turn into a negative image as well.
So, as I understand it, there's a process of research and then copying and then appropriation and modification in the production of the drawings and the slide piece in the show. So there's a lot of stages to
yes, and also I think at the end it is also a process of composing something with all that, and since we are gathering material from different sources. Some things come from scientific studies, something comes from the newspapers, some images or some materials come from the literature or art, and films as well. And we try to put everything in a new and different connection between these materials.
Yeah. And there's a range of, so you end up with a range of imagery and types of representation that are nevertheless coming all from drawings in the library, but that represent the Amazon and aspects of that history of the particular location and region in different ways. So you have a range.
So the library is focused on Amazonian knowledge, and in a way it tries to tell us what supposedly the Amazon is, and so I think what we are trying to explore is these possibilities of really getting to know, or how maybe we can try to go to a different angle to look at it.
Well, maybe one thing we are trying to do, I hope we are on the good way, is what Moazir told about Barrio. It's this unclassification thing. No? So our idea was go to the library, scan everything, and then maybe because of the fact of mixing all together without a clear hierarchy, instead of hierarchy, we are more close to the idea of a narrative or a storyteller. We pretend to talk about or to think about this mediation that science, literature, journalism, also the library itself made about the Amazon. That's one thing. And the other thing, it's also we do this kind of appropriation in the drawings. So it means, for example, if we had one drawing of a family eating around a table inside a room or inside a shed, we decided to take out the people, for example, and left the shed. Or if a graphic contains too many words, we erase the words. So there's a lot of editing work in this process. And also, we had this Drawing America project, who we work on it from 2005 to 2009, and it means several trips around Latin America and drawing. In this case, what we use is drawings from other people, and what we want to do is these drawings. If in the previous project our aim to draw was to certificate what we were seeing, to tell it in a fast. Now in this case we want to use our ability to draw or to use other drawings to set up questions, and I hope we are in the good way.
Yeah. Great. So I'm going to turn now to Ishmael and ask him to describe the project that he's made, which is called Fragments, which I think actually is kind of interesting, given what Raimond and Gilda just said.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I think for me, I've created kind of a situation over the past 5 years of about 8 drafting table architectural situations that have become increasingly interesting to be able to kind of analyze a kind of vernacular architecture, so to speak, in a South American kind of context, specifically like Cusco and Lima, where I'm from. And in this situation, I've kind of created a place where I can allude to different people who have been influential in my thought process on it. I became very interested in that in the research by looking back at a little bit at what happened during World War II with German churches and their kind of rebuilding in terms of their their attempt to kind of make bunkers out of them, so they're bomb shelters. And so I started thinking about what it means to be protected, or what it means to have a shelter over one's head or roof or culture. In this kind of situation, it's not directly taken out of my studio. It is a sculptural situation that I've created specifically for the show. I have about 5 different references. Virilio, for one, with the bunkers. Le Corbusier with the 2 maps. Then I have in the kind of background the loose drawings reference different sites in and out of Lima that I've loosely drawn as I walk through the city. The bunkers are made out of newspaper, the small pieces, that are taken from around 9/11 time, which is the Virilio book that I'm losing the name of it now, but I was very kind of interested in unknown quantity, that's the name of the show in the book, and thinking about disasters and their relationship to bunkers, etc. So I think that's where it kind of comes from. The images on the back is this kind of vernacular architecture. It's actually a photogravure that's taken from a digital photograph. I was interested in kind of reversing time a little bit in it, so kind of seeing the contemporary in a historical context. Yeah, I'm trying to analyze home.
Yeah, great. And Tony, if you can, I think that might work. Describe the three pieces that you're showing.
I think you can speak in Spanish, and because I think a lot of people here speak Spanish, and I'll also translate for people who don't speak English.
Bueno, buen día. El trabajo que estoy presentando acá son tres trabajos. Uno de ellos es dibujo a distancia y dos animaciones.
So I'm showing here three works. Two are animations, and one is called Drawing at a Distance, which is a wall drawing.
El dibujo a distancia es el tercero de una serie de dibujos donde parto de dibujar la distancia que existe entre mi casa y la ciudad donde viajo.
So the wall drawing, Drawing by Distance, is the third of a series of drawings that Tony has done, in which what he does is draw the distance from his house, where he lives in San Juan, Puerto Rico, to the place where he's exhibiting, in this case, the drawing room in London. So the actual, the lines are the full distance in kilometers from San Juan, Puerto Rico to the drawing room in London.
It's the Triangle of Bermuda.
Sí, es un trabajo donde parto desde el principio a hacer algo que falla, que no lo logro hacer. Imposible hacer la distancia en tan poco tiempo.
Entonces no dibujaste.
No, o sea, lo que te explico.
Llegó solo al triángulo de la Bermuda.
Sí, lo que yo hago es que dibujo durante el tiempo que tengo para trabajar, ¿no? Y luego sumo las líneas con los metros que tienen cada línea y saco el %, de la distancia.
So,
real.
So I didn't understand well, but it's a failed attempt in its conception, because he actually only draws the time that he has to draw within the exhibition preparation. So he starts drawing with an attempt to drawing the distance from his house to London, but then only draws as much as he can, and then y después dibujas todo lo que puedes.
Y saco, calculo, en esta ocasión hice un .003% de la distancia.
Okay, and then he does a calculation of what is the actual distance that he covered with his lines, and the lines that he drew are actually how much?
.003.
So you didn't so it's really a 0.00 of the actual distance that he should have drawn. So so you needed like a whole year to.
Yeah, and well. Los otros dos...
A quick question. The other two drawings you had done before, one was...
Uno, Cuenca, en Ecuador, y the other is Lithuania, and Vilnius.
So you've never finished the actual distance?
No, never. I need 1 year. No, me interesa un poco precisamente eso, ¿no? Intentar hacer algo absurdo, algo que no sería imposible, y tratar de darle forma a una cosa que no
So he's interested in this idea of doing this kind of thing that's impossible and almost like a absurdo, like a absence. No?
What I wanted to ask about was the importance of the theme of the horizon here, because it's a very abstract drawing, but on the same time you can read it as a horizon, and I think that's been a motif that's repeated in your work.
Bueno, A ver, yo llevo un tiempo trabajando con cosas muy cercanas a mí, ¿no? Mi casa o cosas muy cotidianas.
So for a long time I've been working on things and themes that are very close to me and to my house and where I live. So.
Esta sería como en este trabajo parto de la idea del horizonte, que en realidad es lo que veo todas las mañanas desde mi casa.
So in this work I start from the idea of the horizon. That's what I actually see every day from the window of my house. You still live in the same apartment?
Llevo como el tercer trabajo también en el que el horizonte es como una cosa importante.
So it's also the third work in which the horizon has this important presence.
Y en el momento en que Tanya me invita a hacer el trabajo para acá, yo cuando empiezo a pensar, pienso en hacer un trabajo sobre un intento de invasión que tuvo Inglaterra en Puerto Rico en el 1797.
So when Tanya invites me to do this work, I start to think about an attempt of invading the island of Puerto Rico by England in 1797.
Pero luego de estudiar y pensar en el asunto, me di cuenta que el paisaje que tenía frente a mi casa era el mismo paisaje donde sucedió el intento de invasión.
And whilst thinking about it, he noticed that the landscape that he could see through his window that he had in front of his house was the same landscape that the people that were attempting to do the invasion or defend themselves it was the same.
Y decidí trabajar con simplemente la idea del viaje, ¿no? Y tratar de hacer una abstracción, pero del horizonte, ¿no?
So that's when he decided only to work with the idea of the trip and make an abstraction of the horizon.
Que es el primer trabajo que parte de alguna cosa, de estos de distancia, que parte de algo, sí, que intenta aludir a una figuración o una cosa.
So it's the first of these wall drawings that tries to do a reference to an actual figurative thing, in this terms, the landscape or the horizon or the view from his window.
Yeah.
And then the other two works
And,
are videos.
Y las dos animaciones, bueno, son son como lo de para hablar de las dos en general, no son una serie de animaciones en las que lo que buscaba realmente era como tratar de que el espectador se acercara a la animación o a la imagen en movimiento desde un punto más reflectivo, más ¿no? El tratar de realmente llevar esa animación a un dibujo, a lo más cercano a lo que fuera como se siente uno frente a una imagen estática.
So the whole idea of the two video drawings is to try to take the spectator as close as he can to the drawing that becomes to an animation that becomes a drawing, because he actually draws. You draw them in the computer, no? It's not that they're that they're drawings that then become computer animations. So they're actually.
Sí.
Los dibujos.
So that leads us on very interestingly. I wanted to ask again all of you to talk about the place of drawing within your practice and how that relates to maybe other media that you use, and why you choose to use drawing in certain circumstances rather than any other media, and how you use drawing.
Qué buena pregunta.
Ana, que ahora les va a preguntar a todos en general qué lugar tiene el dibujo en sus prácticas en general y la relación del dibujo con otros medios.
Está caliente. Así que tú que estás caliente.
Yo.
No, sí, caliente. Vamos.
Caliente sudando.
Sure. Well, I guess from my work that you know from before, I'm very kind of a sculptural installation type of person. So drawing's always been a kind of a very practical way of approaching space and trying to analyze my subject matter and what I need out of it. I oftentimes don't know what it is. I get a feeling that I need something, but I think drawing works to annotate that, to be able to take notes on a situation, a place that becomes important for the bigger kind of pieces, or for the films, the videos I do. I think I don't function through just taking notes through words. Mm-hmm. Whenever I take notes through drawing, mm-hmm. because that's that visual kind of quality that is needed.
But your work often features drawing as an element of it, but as sometimes, for instance, here they're rapid sketches, and sometimes it's a more finished.
Yes, I think oftentimes that, in the drawing studio, I like that, because it's drawing is like this moment outside the sculpture studio. It's about the kind of the nighttime and this kind of solitude that exists. So a lot of the drawings end up being these kind of finished objects that are more kind of personal to me. Mm-hmm. But it depends on the situation. Like for this show, it's more these kind of rapid sketches.
Yeah. And another aspect of the work, which I think this piece also demonstrates, and you mentioned briefly earlier, is the fact of using paper itself as a sculptural medium, and how that features in the work. The models that you have here, which are made out of compressed newspaper.
Yeah. So. I mean, paper is just a beautiful material. There's a reason why we draw on paper, use paper. It's nice, but it's also, in terms of the models, or when I carve the books, it's about the amount of information that's within the paper that I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. And being able to compress all that into my own mind, and then be able to project it in some sort of model, or some sort of sculptural or object that tells a story. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the three-dimensional comes in. Mm-hmm. And also, I think a lot of the early works of like Gordon Matta Clark, Smith, there were all these paper cutouts were very influential to me. So I like that in the studio.
Well, I like drawing. I like drawing, and I like drawing, and maybe I hope that drawing, I can use drawing for whatever I want, although it's very limited things like what I can do with drawing, no? So maybe I repeat again what I said before, that this turn between drawing as a way to certificate the things you see, and the shift to a moment when I use drawing, or we use drawing in this case, to raise up questions, to see the things in different ways, in non-expected ways. And it's also related for me in particularly as writing, and the possibility to imagine other things. And I like drawing.
It's a good answer. Do you want this? Okay, thank you.
Well, I think at the beginning is something that comes to me because I am a bit impatient. So in a way, drawing, it's like a very immediate tool. But also where it's been very, like a discovery as well, this time that we've been doing drawing and doing projects that involve drawing, was the discovery of how many things you can do with drawings, how many different things, or how many different ways of drawing you can try, and also that sometimes you don't even have to draw. Like in this case with the material from the library, we have this a lot of things that we find in these drawings, and that, but we didn't do them. It's just another approach to them.
And Tony, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to contextualize these kinds of work with the other sorts of works that you've done using video or photography. And
Bueno, la pregunta general era qué lugar tiene el dibujo en tu práctica en general. En tu caso, el dibujo es la parte más importante del trabajo, pero ¿qué relación tiene con otros medios? O casi sería también lo que le preguntaban a Raimond y Gilda, o sea, ¿por qué el dibujo como medio? ¿Por qué eliges el dibujo como medio?
Bueno, yo estudié escultura y creo que cuando comencé a trabajar con el dibujo y ver que con poco material y sin la necesidad de tener que pasar por ciertos procesos de buscar material, sino que con lo que tenía cerca de mí podía hacer algo a igual escala o igual interesante, pues eso fue una de las cosas que me llevó a trabajar más.
So I actually studied sculpture, and the possibility or the immediacy of drawing, of seeing that I could do something with what I had at hand and not having to go and find materials, was what took me to start drawing. Y luego, ¿cómo relacionarías el dibujo con el resto del trabajo? ¿Las animaciones, la fotografía o hasta los libros, escultura?
¿Cómo? No sé. No, yo creo que pienso en... Bueno, yo pienso en blanco y negro. Soy daltónico y pienso en blanco y negro.
So I think in black and white. I'm daltonic, so I actually think in black and white.
Y cuando veo la mayoría de las imágenes, pues las pienso en dibujo.
And when I see images, when I actually see the images, I think of them as drawings.
Sí. Y por ejemplo, la serie, bueno, es que no sé si conocen la serie de los libros, pero cuando trabajo escultura también trabajo me interesa como la cuestión de la construcción o las líneas que se pueden crear como en un andamio.
So when I work with other media, for example, sculpture or a project that he's done recently where he has books that are opened and become sculptures and then they are held by a structure of like wood scaffolding, he's also interested in how lines become, how the lines become something or become the support of this structure. So.
Thank you. We're running out of time, and what I wanted to sort of draw together this panel by thinking about the different sets of practices which all have an element of historical research or negotiation of the archive or history within them. So something that links all of these different practices, which are quite different, is nevertheless this kind of historical strand and dealing with the representation of cultural mediation of the landscape or architecture. But as we are running out of time and have about 10 minutes, I wanted to ask, throw this open to the floor and ask if anyone has any questions for the artists and about their work.
Well, I just have a question to the audience. That yesterday I began to think after the yesterday talk. And maybe it's a question that you can ask for us, and maybe it's important that why Latin America? Where is the interest for you? We want to know about this. No? So instead of making questions, or also with the questions, you can tell the different interests you have related to Latin America.
Yeah, very good idea. Say who you are and what your interest is in Latin American art.
Am I on? Yes. My name is Mary Claire Foer. I just finished doing a research degree here at Camberwell, CCW, on drawing in response to the outside environment. And I was talking a little earlier to Kelly Courtney, who runs a BA drawing at Camberwell. And we were talking about how the politics of drawing, the political position that the artists that you were talking about had taken, but that how that having a political reading of that fixed the work, or rather being told of the political reading of it fixed the work, whereas if you weren't given that interpretation, the work might be interpreted in lots of different ways. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to ramble on, but I then talked to Kelly about all the different artists that I could think of who had worked in similar ways. Francis Alice, Bazjan Adder, and Phil Smith of Rights and Sights, who sits in unused spaces in order to attract attention to a space and bring it back to life. And then I realized that as I was saying this, you asked, why are we interested in this? I was kind of referencing all of the works that you had spoken about, and also that you speak about now, in the understanding that I have from a very Eurocentric viewpoint, I'm ashamed to say. But it occurred to me that maybe there are these parallel worlds that are existing at the same time in different continents. People are making works which has all sorts of similar resonances to the works that we have here, but we don't know about it because it's not seen, it's not shown, it's not brought to us so much. So this is fascinating that you bring your practices to us, and we can see the connections and experience that, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Joanne Harwood from the University of Essex Collection of Latin American Art. Ishmael and I were talking about this over dinner briefly yesterday, and I think we concluded that there is a certain kind of Latin American sensibility, even though it's not right to perhaps bunch all Latin American artists together because they associate, you know, in very different ways with very different parts of the world. But for me, I've always been struck by the depth that I encounter in art by artists from Latin America. And although maybe not an overt kind of political engagement, a kind of, I don't know whether it's even a sense of responsibility to the social and what's happening around, but I think that that often maybe contributes to the richness and the depth of the works.
I think on the political side, even though we're not very overtly, I'm not very overtly political, I'm very much moved by Peru's recent past, or Latin America's recent past, in terms of dictatorships and, well, obviously Shining Path and then Mantilla, etc. A lot of the buildings that are referenced in the drawings have a kind of association with that, with a decade of power in the 60s and 70s. So I think there's a move within kind of my generation a little bit away from directly political, but still has that kind of underlying.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I will wrap up then and thank all of the artist participants, and we have another artist panel later in the day with the remaining artists from the show. So thank you very much.